Tough act to follow, right?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Gloria Burgos. Thank you, Ms. Barbara Bird Bennett. I am here representing, well, not really, Lowell School. I'm a parent, and unfortunately, I had lots and tons of difficulty cleaning my son's record for the injustice that it was done, the hard punishment that he received. And I feel frustrated, played, deceived, lie, for so many reasons. You guys made me go through so many different hoops and brick walls. Ms. Barbara knows. It's unbelievable that a parent has to reach out to the chief, Ms. Barbara Bird Bennett, because her staff or any type of administration down the line is not listening to the parents. Our voice are not being heard, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the email that I received from you yesterday, but I had to come today and let you know that I was very frustrated. I should not have come to you. This should be fixed at Lowell School, but it didn't. And this is one of the reasons why I come. I come to let you know that we need change. Change needs to be done when it comes to discipline our child, especially IEP children. Our school has lost compassion, has lost love for our students, for our kids, and this is supposed to be our children's second home, where they're supposed to feel safe, and they don't. They actually feel mistreated. It's a hostile environment at Lowell School, and I need you to change that, Ms. Barbara Bird Bennett. I need the board to please listen to me as a parent. I don't have to come this far. I don't have to reach to Ms. Barbara herself for something that could have been done and fixed at Lowell.
Ms. Burgos, excuse me, can you please conclude?
I will.
Thank you.
The principal treatment towards parents, teachers, and students needs to stop. We don't need to be feeling intimidated by our principal. There's no reason why. This is a community school. Community should become united with the CPS. And we are being slammed. We are being ignored. And this is why, Ms. Barbara Bird Bennett, I ask you for change. We need change in our school. We need change at Lowell.
Thank you,
and
Ms.
as a parent,
Burgos.
I need to be able to come into that school and feel well received, and so does my kid. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burgos. Our next speaker, Mr. President, will be speaker number 56, Megan Schmidt, followed by speaker 57, Mary Cooper, speaker 59, Stacy Babbage, and the last speaker, speaker 60, Danny Baker. Megan Schmidt, please. Last call for Megan Schmidt. Moving on to speaker 57, Mary Cooper.
Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Bird Bennett, and guests. My name is Mary Cooper, and I'm a proud parent at CICS Wrightwood, and I have an 8th grader there. I'm an active member of Charter Parent United. As CPU, we want to thank Jack Elsick, Dr. Bird Bennett, and Jesse Reese for taking the time to sit down with us to discuss issues that affect our students. With that said, we are very concerned about this year's budget, specifically regarding facility funding for chartered students. We know there have been a lot of work done with student-based budgeting that has helped us get closer to equitable funding between charter schools and traditional schools, and we are very thankful for that. However, there is still not equity when it comes to facility funding. We know that the CPS Budget Office and Office of Innovation and Incubation work closely with other members of Chartered Funding Task Force and came to an agreement that charter school students would receive an equitable portion of facility funding. This inequity affects 40,000 of our public school students who are subject to inefficient boilers, faulty windows,
Ms. Cooper, excuse me, can you please conclude?
leaky roof due to the consistent adequate in funding over the years. I want to make it clear, we are not asking for more money than traditional students. We are simply asking for our fair share of the resources. Again, this fair share was agreed upon by members of Charter Funding Task Force, and these are CPS children.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, please, Speaker 59, Stacy Babbage.
Good afternoon. I'm here with my co-chair for Community Outreach, Maria Georgia Coast, and our LSC rep, Frank Palucci from Canty Elementary. On behalf of our principal, we'd like to thank you for approving our annex addition. It was a 15-year fight, we'd like to say, but in conjunction with CPS working hard with you guys and the mayor, we are pleased at the announcement of the addition, and we look forward to the breaking of ground. And we just want to say we thank you very much. We appreciate the struggles that the schools go through for the addition, since we were the last part of the parents fighting in the 15-year battle. So, you know, we hope at the end that they receive what they need for their school, but we are very appreciative of what we received. We're passing around pictures and letters that our students have drawn for you and written for you, as well as a packet that we dropped off for the mayor today, and t-shirts. Canty Elementary just celebrated 65 years of the naming of Canty, and a member of the board was out visiting us for our tour, and it couldn't have come at a better time, the addition. We got to announce it at our festivities. And again, we just want to say thank you from our principal, our LSC, our administration, our teachers, and parents, but mostly from our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker, please, Speaker number 60, Danny Baker. Mr. President, this concludes public participation.
Thank you, Stella. At this juncture, I'd invite the board to react to what they heard in public participation today. If anybody cares to. Jesse?
There's one point, and I don't would never believe that I would actually. I don't agree with the way the speaker raised the issue, but she was dead right in her disgust with the questions that were put on the library science grade 7 test. That I don't know if you all read it regarding immigration, and I understand there's a way to raise issues that we should teach our students to be critical thinkers, but frankly, the librarians who participated in preparing this test failed our students, failed this district, and it was just embarrassing what they put forward to present to our students. I'm typically very proud of the school management here. In this case, I'm incredibly disappointed and personally offended by the questions that were written. We should be a lot smarter than this. We should have a lot better quality control. It was a huge failure from the very top on down that we would allow this ignorant language to be put forward. So this one, we need to go ahead and do an assessment of how this happened and never let it happen again. It was incredibly stupid of someone to let this language go forward.
Thanks, Jesse. Anybody else?
I had another question about the public agenda, and I would like some clarification.
Sure.
I know that we have in the agenda, the Teach for America program, a recruitment, mentoring, and coaching effort. And I just, for clarifications before the vote, I want to know what's the need for this contract? What's the retention rate, for Teach for America candidates, their diversity? And at the same time, what's the percentage from other recruitment efforts that we currently have ongoing?
Good afternoon, Board of Education. My name's Alicia Winkler, Chief Talent Officer for the district. And Carlos, in respectful response to a few questions, I want to make sure I get them right. I think your first question was about the need, for this pipeline program. Teach for America is one of several pipeline programs that we currently use to prepare future teacher candidates within the district. Teach for America currently represents 6% of our hiring population. Those are from last year's statistics. There's a separate board report before you for the new teacher project, Chicago Teaching Fellows, and they represent 4% of the teaching candidate population from last year. Another question you asked, I believe, was about retention.
Retention.
And in terms of retention, I'm pleased to say Chicago Public Schools has had a partnership with Teach for America since about year 2000. 70% of the Teach for America candidates remain in education that came through Chicago's preparation program. Over half of the candidates remain as teachers within the system over 3 years.
Question of diversity.
So the diversity representation is a challenge throughout the nation, and nationally, for the context, teacher preparation programs have about 8.6% representation for African American and about 10.6% representation for Hispanic. Those are national statistics from the most recent Education Secretary's report on teacher quality and teacher preparation programs from 2013. We are in a much better position in Chicago Public Schools, and actually both board reports that are before the board this month for Teach for America and for the new teacher project for their candidate cohort preparing for next school year are in excess of 40% diverse representation.
You mentioned 70% retention in education, but that's national, right? That's not local?
That is correct. That's a
Do we
national
have a figure
statistic.
for how many stay in the Chicago Public Schools?
So currently, 55% stay within Chicago Public Schools as teachers for more than 3 years, and the number increases when you look at other leadership positions throughout the district.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. On this same topic, so two things. I think Carl started with the question of why, so could we just cover the rationale behind, because obviously it's an expenditure and a cost, so why are we doing the pipelining in the first place?
Sure. Chicago Public Schools continues to have an opportunity in some hard-to-staff subject areas throughout the district. Those include subjects like some of our world language topics, our English language learner certifications, diverse learner certifications, some math and science, and specifically technology coordinators in our STEM arena, and some early childhood positions. Specifically, we're challenged when you must mix multiple certifications within hard-to-staff areas. For example, English language learners and diverse learners. Our pipeline programs are targeted towards preparation for hard-to-staff areas, so they over-index in preparing candidates for hard-to-staff areas, thus the need.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Because I know we did this when I was at the State Board of Education with TFA, in the grant, we specifically put targets in terms of diverse, reaching out to diverse candidates, and it increased over that time period, at least when I was at ISB. Do we do that in this grant?
So in our current work with Teach for America, we have asked for increasing targets every year.
Okay. I mean, even if we don't specify targets, an affirmative duty to increase.
Correct. We ask for them to increase their diversity representation in the candidate pool that they provide for us each and every year, and they have done that. Teach for America grew from the mid 30% last year to over 40% this year.
What's the recourse if they don't?
We wouldn't continue to do business if they're not able to meet our expectations.
So, Jesse, just on this point, because Alicia and I have had a fair number of conversations on it, this is a renewal. There'll be an RFP, so it's a one-year renewal. So we have the ability to assess their performance, both their ongoing and whether or not they're going
what we
next year
did at
when they do
ISB.
the RFP. So, because this is a huge issue in terms of diversity, but also our ability to ensure that we're rebuilding our teachers, our pool, particularly of African-American teachers. So I just want you to know that we have spent a fair amount of time talking about this topic.
Yes, and Board Member Zapp that's consistent with exactly what we're doing. We are asking for an extension of this contract in order that all of our teacher pipeline programs are on the same timeline, which affords us the opportunity to go through a request for proposal process next year, of which a few of the major criteria will be teacher quality, what we're seeing in terms of student growth and supports, diversity, and also retention. So all topics referenced by the board members in their inquiries.
Could you also mention the other pipeline programs that we currently fund?
The new teacher project is also before you on the agenda, which is just a slight increase in dollars to allow for the increased contribution of the federal government to a grant to increase support for our ELL prepared teachers. Another pipeline program is Golden Apple Scholars. The Golden Apple Scholars program has been supported by the board and was invested in the August or September timeframe of 2013 for a 3-year investment for them to support scaling of their program, a program that has incredible diversity statistics and retention statistics. And then, of course, we have a large population of student teachers who come to the district each year for support and growth and development in completing their degrees. And we have a little over 1,700 student teacher candidates that typically are part of the district for their student teaching experience and field experience each and every year. Those come from a variety of universities, both local and out of state.
And in terms of accountability, next year will actually be the first time you'll have an ability to have apples-to-apples comparisons of programs in terms of all sorts of outputs. Is that right?
That is correct. So with the implementation of our REACH evaluation system, we have the opportunity to look at trend performance over time and connect that to statistically significant samples from different pipeline providers so that we can see in an apples-to-apples comparison how different pipeline providers are performing against our expectations and on a relative basis against each other.
We also support, grow our own? You mentioned the Chicago Teacher Fellows, engage with us, that we develop this pathway for our own employees?
So we have two different things. There's a Grow Your Own organization, which does also participate in supplying teacher candidates for Chicago Public Schools, is currently not a financial investment that we have made. Their organization focuses on converting and preparing typically teaching assistants, so paraprofessionals, and growing them into teachers. We also have been in conversation with the Chicago Teachers Union about establishing a Grow Our Own initiative where we can really help students, Chicago Public School students, facilitate through their educational experience to gain and increase interest in the teaching profession.
Thank you.
One of my concerns, and we've discussed it, and I want to know a little bit if we move forward on it, is that Teach for America teachers, our contract with them is normally 2 years. And these teachers are in schools that are most vulnerable. And 2 years transitioning out of our poorest schools is a problem. Is there a possibility that we could increase their contract to 3 years in a given school?
I think that's something we're exploring as we move forward with our RFP process next year.
And I think, and the other second thing is there a possibility maybe at the end of the year, next year, since you're going to have data, I would like to be able to see the data on the number of minorities who have left public schools because of closings and turnarounds versus how many are coming in. I don't know what the data is, and I consistently hear that we're losing our minority teachers, experienced teachers with turnarounds and also with charters and closing, mainly closings and turnarounds. So I would like to see how many have exited versus how many we're replacing.
Dr. Hines, I will research that and provide that data for you. I do have one data point to share, and that is that of the teachers who were displaced by school actions in the most recent year, last year, we hired almost 80% of them back into the system. And in that sample group, we also disproportionately rehired African American teachers at a higher rate than Caucasian teachers.
But you're talking about the closing schools,
That's
because you don't have
correct.
any control over turnarounds, right? The hiring and turnarounds.
So the hiring and turnarounds is managed by the Academy of Urban School Leadership and their management team, but I can certainly follow up with the research on those statistics as well.
Thank you.
I mean,
Okay.
given the level of inquiry on this, it might be that at a future meeting, you should do a full-blown presentation about talent development throughout the pipeline of our teacher administrator pool, and then and focusing on the diversity of that pool.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I might make just a couple of observations. The issue around the near North High School that was raised by Mr. Schmidt is much more complicated than you might imagine. I believe even at this date, we no longer control that property. Is that correct? And prior to the transference of ownership to the CHA with respect to that property, it was tied up in legal proceedings that were quite complicated. This was the resolution of those legal proceedings. So the building is actually not available to us as an agency. On the Gresham situation, once again, I stated this last time, I spent a fair amount of time with Dr. Brown, the principal, and members of that community, and listened to their story and their statistics and their ideas for how to improve, and I had a discussion with them and did some research afterwards. I want people to understand that they've had an opportunity to communicate with this board beyond these meetings, so decisions that were made were not made without a fair amount of engagement and research. With that, Dr. Hines, do you have a motion?
I move for the passage of motion number 14-0528-M01 and the commencement of a closed session to consider the subject specified in the motion.
Second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Vice President Reese?
Yes.
Board Member Zapp?
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia?
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays.
We'll now move into closed session. Okay, the meeting of the Board of Education is reconvened. Madam Secretary, please proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will start with items from closed session, and I will begin with a council retention. This item does require a vote. The law firm of Schiff Hardin LLP. Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I will proceed with a roll call. Dr. Hines?
Yes.
For Vice President Reese, I would like to note an abstention.
I apologize. I should not have moved that motion. So can somebody else remove the motion?
We'll strike that off the record,
We have
Vice
a
President
motion?
Reese.
Second?
Move, so
No.
move.
No.
Yeah.
Deborah moves it and Carlos seconds it. Okay, there we go.
Well, the motion was moved by Dr. Hines and then,
Okay, Dr. Hines.
and seconded by,
Wins again.
thank you, Mr. President. So,
Buzzer.
just to note, we will note an abstention for Vice President Reese on that matter. Moving on to Board Member Zapp, please. The Schiff Hardin.
Am I voting? Yes. If I
thank
vote
you.
yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Dr. Escoitia?
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
Thank you. 5 ayes and 1 abstention noted for Vice President Reese. Mr. President, I will continue with additional items that do require a vote, and I will continue with settlements. First report, workers' compensation, payment for lump sum settlement for Rosemary Boyd House, case number 07WC 18687. The second report is the workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Francisca Falcon, case number 08WC 42587. The third report is the workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Pamela James, case number 09WC50128 and 10WC00450. The fourth report is the workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Janice Shaw, case number 11WC41940. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Hines.
Yes.
Vice President Reese.
Yes.
Board Member Zapp.
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia.
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo.
Yes.
President Vitale.
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays. I will continue with items from the Chief Executive Officer, and I will proceed with talent recommendations. These items do require a vote. The first report, transfer and appoint Chief Financial Officer, Ginger Ostro. The second report, approve appointment of Chief of English Learner Programs, Karen Garibay Malateri. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will continue with warning resolutions and with one other matter. These items do require a vote, and they are Justin Moore, Principal, Niños Héroes Elementary Academic Center; Eugenio Escriba, tenured teacher, McCussion Elementary School; Susan Hemmerin, tenured teacher, Reassigned Teachers Pool; Michael Johnson, tenured teacher, High School of Leadership at South Shore. And the other matter to note is the finding that pupils are non-residents of the City of Chicago indebted to the Chicago Public Schools for non-resident tuition. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will continue with items from the board, and these items do require a vote, and they are: first report, resolution by the Board of Education of the City of Chicago regarding the dismissal of Renita Patterson, tenured teacher assigned to Charles N. Holden Elementary School. And for the record, Mr. President, I would like to note that this resolution accepts in part and rejects in part the hearing officer's recommendation. The second report is the resolution approving the Chief Executive Officer's recommendation to dismiss educational support personnel. The third report is the resolution approving the Chief Executive Officer's recommendation to dismiss probationary appointed teachers. And for the record, I would like to note that on May 23rd, 2014, the board members and the Office of the Board received the CEO's recommendation to dismiss probationary appointed teachers pursuant to Board Rule 4-7B2B and 105 ILCS 5/34-84. Her recommendation included the names of the teachers affected and the reasons. She also noted that the teachers affected will be notified of their dismissal after adoption of the resolution. The fourth report is the resolution authorizing the honorable termination of regularly certified and appointed teachers. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I believe that Vice President Reese has a motion, please.
I do. I move that the board adopt the minutes of the closed session meeting of April 23rd, 2014, pursuant to Section 2.06 of the Open Meetings Act. Board members reviewed these minutes and determined that the need for confidentiality continues to exist. Therefore, the minutes of the closed session meeting held on April 23rd, 2014 shall be maintained as confidential and not available for public inspection at this time.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Vice President Reese?
Yes.
Board Member Zapp?
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia?
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays, and I believe that Board Member Zapp has a motion, please.
I move that the record of proceedings of the regular board meeting of April 23rd, 2014, prepared by the board secretary, be approved, and that such records of proceedings be posted on the Chicago Board of Education website in accordance with Section 2.06B of the Open Meetings Act.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Vice President Reese?
Yes.
Board Member Zapp?
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia?
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. President, I will now continue with the items on the public agenda and only read the board report numbers since the titles and board reports appeared on the public agenda. And I will begin with resolutions. I would like to note that RS1 and RS3, Mr. President, these items just need to be accepted by the board.
Please accept as noted in file.
Thank you. I will continue with resolutions that do require a vote, and they are RS2, RS4, RS5. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will continue with communications. These items do not require a vote. CO1 is the communication regarding the location of our June 25th, 2014 board meeting. This is to advise that the regular meeting of the Board of Education scheduled for Wednesday, 25th, 2014 will be held at the Central Administration Building, 125 South Clark Street, Board Chamber, 5th floor. The board meeting will begin at 10:30 a.m. The public participation guidelines are available on www.cpsboe.org or by calling the board office at 773-553-1600. For the June 25th, 2014 board meeting, advance registration to speak will be available beginning Monday, June 16th at 8 a.m. and closed Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. or until all slots are filled. You can advance register during the registration period by the following methods: online, by phone, or in person. And the public participation segment of the meeting will begin as indicated on the meeting agenda. The second communication, Mr. President, is CO2, and this is the communication regarding the 2014-2015 schedule of regular board meetings. To the members of the Board of Education, I am hereby submitting the 2014-2015 schedule of regular board meetings. The board meetings will be held on the fourth Wednesday of each month unless otherwise noted. The board meetings will be held in the board chamber, 5th floor, 125 South Clark Street, Chicago, Illinois, and will begin at 10:30 a.m. until further notice. Registration for public participation will open the week prior to each board meeting from Monday at 8 a.m. and close Friday at 5 p.m. or when all 60 slots are filled, and only advance registration is available. Again, you can advance register during the registration period by online, by phone, or in person, and the public participation segment of the meeting will begin as indicated on the meeting agenda. I'd also like to note that the official record reflect that the 2014-2015 planning calendar has been prepared in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, and we will also post this information on our website. Mr. President, I'll continue with additional items on the public agenda that do require a vote, and they are EX1, EX2, EX3, EX4, EX5, EX6, and for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese on EX6. Moving on to EX7, EX8, EX9. Mr. President, for the record, I would like to note that EX9 has been withdrawn. This is the renewal for the Elaine Locke Charter School, and EX9 has been withdrawn from the agenda. The next item then would be EX10, EX11, EX12, and then we proceed with EX13. And for the record, Mr. President, I would like to note that EX13 has also been withdrawn from the agenda, and this is for the establishment of the Excel Academy Southwest and the performance agreement with Camelot Alt Ed, Illinois. EX13 has been withdrawn. The next item then is EX14, EX15, EX16, and for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese on EX16. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote with the noted abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will continue with additional items that do require a vote, and they are OP1. And for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese on OP1. Moving on to PR1. PR2, I would like to note for the record an abstention for Vice President Reese on PR2. We then have PR3, 4, and 5. Moving on to PR6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we have PR10, and on PR11, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese as well as Board Member Quazzo on PR11. The next items then are PR12 and 13. Moving on to PR14, PR15, and on PR16. For the record, Mr. President, I would like to note abstentions for Vice President Reese and Board Member Quazzo on PR16. The next item is PR17. On PR 18, Mr. President, for the record, I would like to note abstentions for Vice President Reese and Board Member Quazzo on PR 18. On PR 19, Mr. President, as well as PR 20 and 21, I would like to note abstentions for Vice President Reese for PR 19, 20, and 21. We then have PR 22, and for the record, I would like to note abstentions for Vice President Reese and Board Member Quazzo on PR 22. The next item then is PR 23, and for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese on PR 23, as well as PR 24 and PR 25 for Vice President Reese. We then move on to PR 26, PR 27. On PR 28, for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese on PR 28. We move on to PR 29, and on PR 30, for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese as well as Board Member Quazzo on PR 30. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections, my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote with the noted abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will continue with additional items on the public agenda that do not require a vote, Mr. President, and they are EX 17, EX 18, and AR1. And Mr. President, these items just need to be accepted by the board.
Please mark received and filed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and there are no further items on the public agenda.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Aye, we're all adjourned.